Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me. I've been enjoying the past conversations. A lot of similar topics, similar ideas to what we are trying to achieve, and it's pretty cool to see, for me personally, the launch of BitTorrent X and the whole streaming integration. I think it's a great extension of and a real, let's say, real world use case of what we could achieve with blockchain. It's a pretty cool take on the paradigm shift of the Web3 idea. And that's also what I'd like to talk about today. So I think some of you must have seen over the summer, Tron and Waves have partnered. Now I'm the strategic advisor to the Waves Association, and I could from quite closely see how some of the ideas of the Tron Foundation, what Tron is trying to achieve, are very closely aligned with Waves as an ecosystem is trying to achieve. And I think, and as you can see, it's essentially a goal of enhancing the future of decentralized finance. Now, it's quite, let's say, a big terminology, but I'll try to explain a little bit on what that means from a practical perspective and what it means from a technical actual implementation. So I think over the summer, both ecosystems committed to growing our audience. And I think we're both very focused on blockchain-based innovation, on this exploring real-world use cases, but mainly we're aiming at speeding up blockchain-based adoption or mass adoption in that sense. And I think it's a special day today because we're finally crossing that 20K while this stream started. So I think it's a special day, not just obviously for BitTorrent product launch, but also because it's kind of a confirmation of this whole visionary idea of trying to achieve this adoption in the future. But the fact that we're crossing this peak again is extremely interesting for us because, and I mean us as an industry, because it's a confirmation that this whole innovation-driven finance or blockchain-based finance is sort of in the wrong path. And of course, we need to start somewhere. And I think we had a similar conversation with Tron over the summer, like what can we achieve in the short run that enables this vision? And then how can we expand in a later stage? So what we're both very focused on is this whole cross-chain capacity for both of our ecosystems, both for Waves and for Tron. And it was the most achievable for us to achieve that through Gravity, which is a protocol inside the Waves ecosystem that's focused on cross-chain communication, but in a very unique sense because it doesn't have its own token. So it's a communication protocol that focuses on data transfer, token transfer, but mainly it's focused on data oracles. And what we could do with that, it allows for Tron to connect to a core protocol. And to that core protocol, also Ethereum, Binance Smart Chain, Waves, and a set of other partners are connected to that chain. And that opens up bridges for any user of Tron or BitTorrent or Just Token or any of the other, like, let's say, Tron ecosystem dApps or tokens or users to essentially get a bridge into the whole, let's say, wide world of Ethereum and all those other chains. Now, it also means that all the tokens that are on Gravity can be cross-chain interoperable. So it opens up essentially a whole range of asset transfers, dApp communication. And I think Tron as well is building a whole network or range of DeFi products that are very attractive to Waves users. So Tron has done an excellent job in the whole Tether implementation of essentially porting Tether into the Tron network and then using the specific characteristics of Tron to make faster and cheaper, or well, free tether transfers. And I think it's a very similar approach to what Waves is also focused on. So I think what we're seeing now is that the mainnet integration of Tron into Gravity will go live like early January, and it's already live in testnet. And I think we're sort of touching on that similar vision, and I'd like to elaborate a little bit on what that vision is for Waves, essentially. And I've put it there in the top. We call that in DeFi, and in DeFi is essentially interchain DeFi, because I think that we're seeing a very big like growth spurt or we've seen that over the summer, and we're still seeing it in specific parts of our industry. And the issue that we still have is that a lot of the really cool tech doesn't communicate with anything outside of its own bubble. And that's kind of what we're trying to break. And that's also why we're not trying to focus just on the DeFi aspect of it, but really opening up that bridge, communicating from a technical perspective with Tron, with Ethereum, with other chains. And that's kind of what Gravity envisions inside our own ecosystem. It's like a low barrier, blockchain agnostic. So any chain could join, but it's also token agnostic. So it doesn't have its own token, but it uses the tokens of the networks that it's connected to. But it allows the whole Waves ecosystem to step into other ecosystems and vice versa. So it increases the adoption that we're trying to go for. But we also know that this communicational infrastructure that we're opening up, it's not sufficient, let's say, to just have that communication. We need to put those first milestones in that, let's say, foundation. And that's kind of what Neutrino is for the Waves ecosystem. And before I dive too far into how Neutrino works, because it's quite specific, I'd like to run some numbers by you, because it always like sort of gives a very good view of what it does. So Neutrino it's essentially an assetization protocol or a stablecoin protocol. And one of the presentations earlier on like how Ample is a different stablecoin than some of the others. And one thing I'd like to like re-emphasize is that there's a very big difference between, let's say, fiat or like traditionally backed currencies and currencies that are, in a sense, algorithmic, whether they are backed with crypto or whether they are backed with, let's say, value. But that's essentially where the innovation in the near future for stablecoins will be. And that's what Neutrino is. So Neutrino allows for people to issue a stablecoin in exchange for something that they've given. And in our case, that's essentially people sending in Waves to a smart contract, and then they immediately get USDN or Neutrino dollar in return. Now, we've launched that little over a year ago, a year and a few weeks, but we've seen an explosive growth in the last 2 months. So over the last 2 months, we've added a good 80 or 90 million in a matter of weeks to the total supply, and we currently have 127 million circulating supply. And the interesting part of that is that 98.5 million of that is sitting on ETH chain. So what we did over the summer is we said, okay, we're very confident on our product of Neutrino and how USDN works, but we know that because of its unique characteristics, we need to bridge that into Ethereum, because everyone's too focused on farming and no one's going to take the time to look and learn something new when everyone is making so much money. So we decided to step into Ethereum's ecosystem with and essentially with Neutrino, and essentially making that cross-chain interoperability for a dApp happen. And that really sparked the interest of many farmers, because we integrated USDN into Curve, and it has been the highest interest yielding pool since it got integrated there. And that's been over 2 months right now. And that's probably also what I'd like to explain. And I think we'll see more similar examples like that in the future. But I'd like to explain you why that is. And you also see that there's, I noted it down, there's 280 million collateral in waves. And what that means, and I try to explain it here, but bear with me. So essentially you send in waves into a smart contract, the neutrino smart contract. And the contract sends you back or issues newly issued USDN. So if I send in, let's say, 1,000 waves, and waves is $9 today, I will get $9,000 back from the contract. I no longer own that waves. That waves is no longer mine. So the waves is now owned by the contract. Now we are a proof of stake blockchain, a leased proof of stake blockchain. So it means that there's block rewards, which is around 6% per year. And these block rewards, they are paid out to the contract because the contract owns that waves. So there's like 34 million waves sitting in a contract right now, which is $280 million. Now, this value, this collateral, is generating block rewards. And these block rewards are paid out in neutrino, in USDN, to those people who stake USDN. So not everyone is staking it because a lot of people are trading it, using it to buy or sell, or in Ethereum's case, it's automatically, so we ported it essentially to Ethereum, but in Ethereum's case, the token is auto compounding. And I'd like to go back here. So as you can see, USDN in that list here, we currently have around like 11% yield, between 10 and 11% that we have right now. Some of the other currencies, they are backed by USDN, and they have a similar structure of staking. But there you get these higher staking rewards because it's disproportionate. Not everyone is staking these currencies. So what's happening here is that this massive, let's say, boom that we've seen in Curve's pool, where we very quickly saw a large growth, is largely being created by the fact that this unique structure of generating yield for a stable coin hasn't been recreated yet. So, or it doesn't exist. And more importantly, it's sustainable because the block rewards won't go away, and it's not based on borrowing or lending. So it's a system that will keep sustaining itself in the future. And the borrowing and lending yields can happen on top of that, which is something that we're working on in the next, let's say, 6 to 8 weeks. And we're seeing a very big traction with this. But more importantly, we're capable of offering a really unique structure to people who are very heavy into DeFi, very heavy into farming, but we can offer them a higher yield and a sustainable return in a different approach. And I think the mindset of what we've tried to achieve has always aligned very closely with what Tron has been trying to achieve and how they're approaching, let's say, their presence in our space, and that has made it such a fun collaboration over the last few months. So I'd say maybe, and I put it here, happy 20K day. I think maybe as a closing message, I'd like to let people who maybe have joined more recently, let's say a year ago or over the last 2 years, maybe 3 years, maybe the previous bull run. I think if someone would have told me maybe 8 or 9 years ago when I just found out about Bitcoin that we would ever cross 20K, I would want to believe them, but I wouldn't believe them. And I think it's a big day for people to sort of like soak in. It's not necessarily about the price. It's not the fact that we will go to 50 or 100 or 5K, but it's more about the fact that as an industry, we're starting to be successful and we're achieving what we want. And I think Tron is on a very good run on achieving their goals. And I think we can probably say the same for what we're trying to achieve with Waves. And I think I can pass on the word back to where we started.